Hi, I'm Nervous, and today we are going to be doing a mini theory about Scott Cawthon, the creator of FNAF, and the kinds of characters he writes. Scott Cawthon is nothing if not the master of writing what you know. His stories center heavily on father figures and their sons. Occasionally, he will dip into the pool of mothers and daughters, but it's suffice to say he writes a lot about dads and their children. Today, I want to talk a little bit about why I think that is. Before I say anything else, I have no intention of saying anything definitive about Scott or his life. This is about themes in his writing and storytelling and how I am choosing to interpret them. I would call it an essay proper, but this is going to feel more like a rough draft, as rather than doing extensive research, I am just using the knowledge I've collected organically. If you'd like to know why, this video will be in two parts. First, my thoughts on Scott, and then why this video feels different, but also why I felt the need to make it. I won't delay any further, so let's get into the theory, so to speak. Of course, as previously stated, it makes sense for Scott to write what he knows, and he is a father with sons. And writing what you know is a very good piece of advice for new and seasoned writers alike. However, we're also talking about a horror franchise, and I don't believe Scott has personal experience with things like soul-infused living metal or serial child life ending. What Scott does have experience with, though, is working long hours to support his family while also trying to follow his passions. Horror is not only the monsters and the atmosphere. It is first and foremost about fear, creating a sense of dread, and what happens when our worst fears are realized. If Scott Cawthon is writing what he knows, it's also likely he is asking himself, what do I fear most? Scott has a family, one he worked tirelessly to help support and entertain. He also had a dream. He wanted to create video games, and he did. For a long time, Scott saw very limited interest in his work, but he didn't give up. And ultimately, he loved making games for his sons to play. It was a way to bond and share his passion with his family. It wasn't until receiving criticism of his character design that he pivoted to horror. Fine, you think these characters look scary? I'll make sure they haunt you. After the success of Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott began to expand upon the simple enough story revolving around a costumed killer and haunted animatronics. To me, it was the novels where Scott really began to examine the question of fear and what that looked like to him. It is no surprise then, really, that he created two fathers, both absorbed by their passions in such a way that it caused them to neglect their families. To me, both William and Henry exemplify the ways Scott's career could destroy him. We even see Scott insert himself into FNAF world to express some of these fears outright. I do not believe Scott is alone in obtaining success and finding oneself incredibly conflicted in one's feelings. Of course, there is joy and relief, but being known can also leave you feeling exposed. No longer so private, and fielding the negative along with the positive. It seems only natural Scott would go on to write about these two fathers, one who loses himself in his work so deeply he becomes defined by it, and very protective over it, jealous and spiteful, enraged at anything that would threaten its future successes. Ultimately, becoming a monster so enmeshed in his work he is unrecognizable. Is he still a man with a soul? Or just the product, a shell of the self driven only by a desire to keep existing, never able to die a natural death? The other father, one driven to make a good life for his family, one who loved using his talents to create toys for his children to enjoy. However, after a failure to be there for his kids caused a rupture in his home life, his work became an obsession, and he became a stranger to his family. The more lost he became in his work, the lonelier his life would become. He spent years living in an illusion, until the loneliness, guilt, and feelings of failure consumed him. There are a myriad of versions of this absent father in Scott's work, whether they be consumed by work, stress, mental illness, substance abuse, some mixture of tired and emotionally unavailable. To me, it's everything Scott fears he could become as a parent. It shows in the way he's so preciously guarded his private life. He wants to be a present father, one who shares his passions with his children without forcing them to follow in his footsteps. Perhaps he wants to leave them a legacy without neglecting their status as his children. It would seem Scott Cawthon's worst fear isn't murderous animatronics or phasgoo. It's being a bad parent. Well, at least that's my theory. And that really leads me very well into the second part of this video. Though FNAF is something I casually followed for some years, I fell off for a while when life became busy and difficult. Then, one summer day, nearly 3 years ago to the day this video was uploaded, I lost my father. As I grieved, I rediscovered FNAF. I poured my grief into it, you might say. That is really a story for another day, but I mention it because grief is Five Nights at Freddy's in many ways. And right now, I am grieving another loss. A mother, not mine, but one who leaves behind a family, friends, and community who loved her dearly. I won't speak any more on that beyond saying it was tragic and very unexpected. And over these past days, I felt helpless. It wasn't until last night, as of writing this and recording it, that I remembered these thoughts I held about Scott and about how much being a good parent meant to the beautiful soul who can't be here anymore to watch over her children. So, I'm making this video in dedication to her, and any revenue I make from it will go directly to helping those she left behind. I will not share any personal information, and I'm not asking for donations. If you feel compelled to help, I ask you to be a good friend, and to please move through this world with a heart for your community. Love people with an open mind, give when you can, and be kind to animals. Okay, bye.